Good morning. We're here. Idea Studio Live. Hi, Miss Ginny's here. Looking forward to seeing everybody this week. So let us know. Type into the comment section. Let us know who's there. Say hi. Tell me who's there. Mark's back on the computer replying to you. Mr. Joey's running the camera. So they'll let me know when somebody says they're there.
Alicia's on.
Oh, I was just about to guess maybe Sophia and Casey would be the first ones on. Hi, good morning, Alicia. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Casey. We are painting today. And our picture is perfectly appropriate for today because we're painting flowers. After all those April showers, we're gonna, April showers bring May flowers. So let me know when everybody's there. You can be pulling out your painting stuff once you sign on. You got pots of paint, brushes. You should have a little round brush from before. We're going to use all kinds of things today, so my table's really full. The one thing I didn't put on your checklist that you might want to find from home is a hair dryer. So those of you that have found hair dryers before, go snag that hair dryer again. Let me know who's there. I got Sophia and Casey. Maybe Sophia, Casey, and I will just have a painting party together here.
You got 16 people.
Oh, I got a bunch more. So Mr. Joey will tell me who, or Mr. Mark's going to tell me who. I'm going to guess, is Emily there? Or maybe Isla and Flora and Clara?
Oh, Dana's there.
Oh, Mia and Evie are there. And Evie, I have to tell you, you just made my day last week when we made our butterflies. Oh, I don't have one up here. We made these awesome butterflies in our Friday project, if you haven't done it. And Evie did the best job. We used all kinds of marker and colored these butterfly. And then if you had washable markers, you took a toothbrush and you flicked it with your fingers. So we made like a little spray of water. And it made the cool colors on the butterfly get all like tie-dyed looking. I'm telling you, Evie had the best idea. Her mom sent me a video, and there was Evie dunked her electric toothbrush in the water and just flicked the switch and was just standing there holding the toothbrush. Instead of flicking with her little finger, she just let the electric toothbrush do it. It was genius, Evie. I thought that was the best thing I saw all last week. So if you haven't sent me pictures of how butterflies turned out, do that. If you made butterflies last week, I'd love to see our whole, what did we decide? A group of butterflies is called a lot of different things. One thing was a kaleidoscope. I love that image. A kaleidoscope of butterflies out there floating around from our lesson last week. Today, I think we got a lot of people signed on. So today we are painting. This is our painting. I'm going to call it April Showers Bring May Flowers, because it poured and poured and poured and poured and poured and poured yesterday. So see, this is an appropriate thing for us to do today. We're going to make a whole field of wildflowers today. So what I need you to do is, the things you need to find that aren't in your bag is, if you got a hairdryer, find a hairdryer. It'll make life easier. Do not worry if you don't have a hairdryer in your house, because you can watch me, and if yours isn't quite dry and you want to just watch and know what we're going to do next, you can always pull the video up later. So don't worry if you don't have a hairdryer. You want to find a container of water, and then we're going to need that big brush. I call it a chip brush because these aren't like fancy brushes. These are brushes that just cover a big area quickly. So we need our big brush. Some of you had brushes even bigger than this. Some of you had maybe a little smaller, but big flat brush that's going to cover big. If you don't happen to have one of these, if you have any of those sponge brushes, or even a sponge, well, you could even use your fingers. We're going to use a big brush to cover our big sky back here. And then everybody's got like a little round brush. Those of you that have been doing this a lot of weeks, you had this when we did our ink wash with our dolphin the very first week. Or if you did ink wash with our pelican, that round brush that you used to do ink wash with, we're going to use that to do our field of flowers down here. So find yourself your big brush and your round brush from home, and you're going to use one of, you pull out, I think everybody had 2 styrofoam plates. It'll probably make life easier if you pull both plates out. You might be like some of my friends that paint with me and be very neat on your palette and have all these tiny little spots where you put paint. Or you might be more like me and you might get paint all over your plate. And you might need your extra plate. But you're going to need at least one of your plates. And then I suggest from home, get some paper towels. Miss Ginny's got like 3 of them here because I'm always patting my brush off and getting my paper towels all wet. So find your a paper towel you can pat your brush on. We don't want our water too dripping. The paint that we've sent home to you all is a really wonderful paint. It's a nice heavy body. It covers really nicely, but it flows really nicely too. We don't have to water it down. So we're going to be patting our brush on the paper towels. So find yourself a little wad of paper towels. And then the couple things from home is a container of water, your paper towels. If you got a hair dryer, get your hair dryer. And then find a pencil. We're not going to draw with the pencil today, but we might use the other end of the pencil. So find a pencil that maybe your eraser's all worn off and have your pencil ready because that'll be something we'll use at the end. You should have 5 pots of paint in your bag. We have a blue and a red and a green and a white and a yellow. So we're going to use all 5 of these colors. We're going to look at our color wheel and actually discover how to make all kinds of different shades of green. I gave you guys some green. So this was an already mixed up green. But we're also going to look at our color wheel and make some dark green and some light green. And besides just using white to make light green, we're going to look at the color wheel and discover all kinds of colors. So, I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes. Get your canvas. This canvas is called a stretched canvas. And it's called that because if you flip it over and look at it on the back, see how it's got a wooden frame around it? And then this canvas, which is just like material, like if you've got a canvas jacket, sometimes it's kind of like your material to make blue jeans out of. They stretched this canvas around on the wooden frame and they back stapled it. It's called back stapling because when you look at it from the front, you can see the pretty sides and all you see is nice canvas. You don't see the ugly staples on the side. So this is called a back stapled stretched canvas. This is a standard size. It's called 11 by 14. So it fits in standard size frames that are available on aisles at a store. So we're going to paint on this canvas. I'm going to do my painting vertical. You can see my painting I did earlier. I'm going to do mine vertical. So we have this big sky up here with this big sun. So this looks like in the middle of the day when the sun has come out, dried up all the rain. That's the Eensy Weensy spider. It's dried up all the rain and our flowers are blooming and the sun's shining. We don't have any clouds in the sky and it's a great day. I think we're supposed to get this way by tomorrow. So I'm going to do my canvas vertical like this. So we're going to hold it straight up and down. And let us know. Give me some thumbs up. Has everybody got their supplies? You found your paint? You got your 2 brushes. You need your big brush and your little brush. If for some reason you can't find your big brush, we can use the little brush. If for some reason you can't find your little brush, don't worry. We can figure out ways to do it. Okay? So we need a little round brush and your big brush. You need your canvas. You need your styrofoam plate so we have a place to squirt our or scoop our paints out onto. We're gonna use all 5 of our colors of paint. And then for later, we're going to use a pencil. So you can just find that and stash that away. We don't need it right this minute. And if you can find your hair dryer, if you got a hair dryer there, get your hair dryer out. It'll make it easier to follow along with me. I'm going to use a hair dryer a couple times. If you don't have a hair dryer, do not worry. Because you can follow along and watch what I'm going to do. And then you can pull up the video later and redo it when you've got time for your paint to dry in between. We are using acrylic paint. Parents that are out there, acrylic paint washes off your hands with water. It washes off your brushes with water. I'll give you a little lesson on washing your brush out because you've got some nice little round brushes in there. You don't want to ruin them. But when paint dries, it will not come off your clothes. I'll say that one more time. If you get paint on your clothes and the paint dries, it is not going to wash out of your clothes. So my recommendation would be to put some big old t-shirt on that doesn't matter. Make sure you don't have one of your school uniform shirts on. Make sure you don't have grandma's favorite dress on. The paint will not wash out of your clothes when it dries. So if you want to put something over you, or be sure and cover the table. We're going to lay the canvas down on the table to paint. And I like painting my sides. You don't have to. But see how I've painted the edges of my painting? So when I look at it and it's hanging on the wall, it looks kind of finished. So I would recommend putting something down on the table. We're going to lay our canvas down on the table, and I don't want you getting paint on Mom's table. Okay? So I'm going to have Mr. Joey's going to pull the camera in so I can get set up on my table while you're setting up on your table. I got to make space on my table. This isn't a very big table, is it, Mr. Joey? I'm going to hand Mr. Joey the hairdryer to get off my table, and let's move my activity bag off the table. There we go. So I'm making myself a little bit of space here. We're going to lay this painting down so you all will be able to see it while we're painting. I'm going to put my pencil up here because we don't need that yet. And let's get paints over here. And let me move my chair a little bit. Are you all getting situated? I got to move my foot so I don't bump Mr. Joey's camera tripod. Okay, let me know when you're all set. Give me a thumbs up. And that way we know we're ready. Everybody has got their table all set. I'm going to let Mr. Joey make sure he can see both our painting and what I'm working on here. How about if we put the paints in the middle? That works. Okay. Okay, how are you guys doing getting all situated? Tell you what, I'm gonna put these two colors over here, Joey, out of the way, so we have a little better room to work here. Okay, we got some thumbs up. Everybody's ready? I gotta try not to bump the tripod that Mr. Joey's working on. I'm gonna put my paper towels in my lap here, so you won't really see me patting my paintbrush dry, but I will remind you when you need to do it. Okay, are we ready to paint? Now some of you might have a little tabletop easel at home. In the studio here we use these little tabletop easels, and I know some of you have bought them for yourselves, so if you want to prop this up on a tabletop easel, you are welcome to. I can't do that because Mr. Joey's camera wouldn't be able to see it. So I'm going to squirt on my plate here. Well, I'm not going to squirt my paint. I'm going to scoop my paint out of the dish. And what do you think we're going to start with first? When you paint, you have to start from what's farthest behind, and you paint yourself forward. So if we look at my April showers bring May flowers painting here, what's closest to us in the foreground are all my flowers and my grasses and my stems, right? So if we want to start with what's farthest away, we're going to start this painting by painting the sky. And we're going to paint this nice, big, bright yellow sun. But I'm not going to start with yellow. So what do you think we're going to start with? We're going to start with some white, because my yellow, I don't have a whole lot of yellow in the sky, do I? And yellow is one of those colors that it's a very light color, and it doesn't show up very well unless you mix a little white with it. Yellow can kind of look transparent, can kind of look see-through unless you mix a little white with it. So since I want my bright yellow sun to show in the middle of the painting there, in the middle of my sky, I'm going to start with some white. And what I want to look at with this painting, can we see this whole painting, Joey? Okay, here's the middle of my painting, right? So the middle of my painting, my sun's almost on this side of the middle, right? It really doesn't go too far over there, particularly the yellow part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your white paint here, and I'm going to paint right out of my pot of paint first. So we're going to put my styrofoam plate there. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint on my big brush like this. And I'm going to think of, here's the middle of my canvas, right? This would be in about the middle. So I'm going to put this big round sun over here. I don't want it right in the middle because that looks boring. It's kind of like we always do odd numbers of things. We always make things a little off center. Makes it a little more interesting. So find the middle of your canvas and think of, on this side is going to be our big round shining sun. Put a little white paint on your big brush and we're just going to paint a little circle. And we're going to make our circle bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, it's kind of hard to see where I've painted because the canvas is white. But I want you to paint with this white in a big circle until we fill almost this whole spot. Now, I don't know if you can see on the camera. See how one of the little bristles came off my brush right down there in the paint? I just picked it up with my paintbrush. See that little bristle? It had fallen off in my paint. Instead of sticking your fingers in the paint, just scoop with the brush and take that little bristle off. Okay, so you're going to keep getting some paint. You're going to paint all the way over to this edge with your white. And I keep putting it in a nice big circle. I kind of liked that about my painting. I liked it looking like it was just this big round sun shining and shining and shining. So I'm going to keep painting my little white circle. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Can't see it.
I know you can't tell I got any paint on my canvas, can you? But I've painted all the way up to this left top corner. And I've painted all the way over to the center. I'm going to hold it up just a little bit and see if Mr. Joey's camera can tell. Can you tell with where the light shines where my paint is, Mr. Joey? Sort of. So, what I've done is paint in a circle like this, and I've painted all the way over to this side. I've painted all the way up to the top, across to the middle, and I've gone across the middle in a circle about like that. Okay? Now what I want to do while my white paint is still wet, acrylics will stay wet for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm going to dip, I don't even need to rinse my brush off. I'm going to dip just the end of my bristles in the yellow. See, I didn't get very much yellow. I don't want to scoop yellow. I just want a tiny little hint of yellow in the middle. So see how much yellow I put on my brush? I'm going to go right back here in the middle of my circle where I started. And I'm going to put just the tiniest little circle of yellow in the middle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Okay? It doesn't take much yellow. We don't want to use too much yellow. Okay? So I've got my little shining sun right in the middle. And now I'm going to wash my yellow off. If I didn't wash my yellow off, because what color do you think I'm going to pick up next? I'm going to pick up some of my blue next to do the rest of the sky. We're going to paint the rest of the sky all the way down to the bottom. If I picked up my blue with this yellow on my brush, do you know what we'd get? Put my color wheel down here for a minute. Can we see my color wheel, Joey? If I have yellow on my brush and I pick up some blue paint, is my sky going to look blue? Nope. Since I have yellow on my brush and I pick up the blue paint, my sky is going to look green. Now that might be kind of cool if we were inventing a Dr. Seuss field of wildflowers. But right now I want my sky to look blue. If you'd like to have a green sky, you could do a green sky. You can do whatever you would like since you're the artist. But since I want my sky to look blue, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to rinse all that yellow off my brush. So I'm going to swish it in the rinse water and swish and swish and swish. I'm pushing down and swishing. I'm going to tap all that water off on the side of my rinse water. And then I'm going to pat my brush dry. Now these chip brushes, they hold a lot of water in them. So really pat it dry. And one thing you got to watch when you're painting, sometimes you get water up on this part of the brush. So you don't just want to dry the bristles. If you have a big drop of water up here and I turn the brush this way to paint, that little drop of water will slide right down and go plunk right on my canvas and make it too wet. So dry your paintbrush off, and we're going to open up the blue paint. And while my white paint is still wet here, what I want to do is I don't want to start right up here by my yellow. I want to give myself a big gap here with the white, but I want to put a little bit of blue on my brush. And right out here at the edge of where I had white, I'm going to brush some blue into that white. Now see where it's combining with my white that was still wet? It's making it a nice light shade of blue. So I'm going to wrap it around here. I'm going to leave all that white for right now. I'm going to brush my blue. And I really want it not to look like I've cut out a white pancake for my son. So what I'm going to do is take my plate, and at this point I want to scoop some of my white paint out onto my plate. So where'd my other brush go? Oh, here we go. I'm going to use my other brush since that brush already has blue on it. I don't really need to rinse it off. So I'm going to take my round brush here. I'm going to use it like a little shovel. I'm going to scoop some white paint up and I'm going to put it on my plate. Scoop some up, put it on my plate. Wipe that off. Okay, now this brush has got paint on it. We never want to leave a brush sitting with paint on it. It ruins the bristles. So I'm going to put my brush down in the rinse water just to keep it wet till I can wash it off. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit of this white paint. I got blue on my brush, so I'm just going to scoop from one side of my puddle here. And I'm going to come in here and put a little bit more white into my blue. Now I'm going to go back into my blue here that's in my puddle. I'm going to get some really dark blue up in this top corner here. And as long as my paint is still wet, when I brush that dark blue up to my light blue I've got here, I can brush over that and come back into my dark blue, come back into my light blue, and I won't have any line where one stops and one starts. I got a kind of harsh line right here, which we're going to solve in a minute, but I'm going to fill in the rest of my sky by taking a little blue straight out of the pot there and get out here at the edges with my dark blue. If you want to paint your sides, this is the time to do it while you got brush paint on your brush. So I got a dark line in between here and here. If I want to make them blend like up here, I brush up into the light blue, and then I take the light blue and brush down into the dark blue. Up into the light blue, and down into the dark blue. Now you don't see my line anymore. Okay. So we'll brush along here. I'm going to fill in my sky all the way to the bottom. Even though my grass is going to cover some of my bottom, but this way I won't be stuck with a piece of canvas showing just in case I don't want to put a piece of grass there. So I'm going to come back here on my plate, pick up a little bit more of my white. See why I didn't want to pick up the white right from my pot? See how my white's getting a little bit of blue in it? Okay, so I'm going to let Mr. Joey hold my plate. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of white. So we lighten this up. I like my sky kind of dark over here on this one side, but I really want it to be nice and light and pretty over here. So I'm going to keep brushing that blue onto here till I use up all the blue that was on my brush, till I'm finally out of paint on my brush. And then I'm going to come back here and pick up a little bit more white. I got a big scoop of white. Okay? And I'm going to come right up here by my sun. Make my sky lighten up a little bit up there. See how much lighter it got by brushing that white into it? It's really fun to make skies. This is called painting wet on wet. It's a technique for painting. Sometimes people will paint an area, let it dry all the way before they start painting the next part. I kind of like letting my colors combine right on the canvas. And I still have this, oops, I'm getting farther away. Let's scoot this over. There we go. I still have a really harsh line here. So I'm gonna see if I can put a little more blue out of my pot. I'm gonna get blue across the bottom here, and then I'm gonna stop and wash all this blue off my brush. So I can then go back and pick up some more white out of my pot. Do I have any white still on my plate, Mr. Joey? Little bit. We'll scoop that last little bit off of there and lighten this up. There we go. So I've got it painted all the way to the bottom. Oh, look, see? Another bristle came off this big old brush, which is fine. That happens with these kind of cheap, what we call chip brushes. So I'm going to use the brush instead of my fingers and pull that little bristle right out of there. If you use your fingers to try to pull it out, you're going to leave fingerprints in your sky. That would look a little odd. Okay, did you paint your sides? If you're painting your sides, don't forget while you're down here to paint your bottom part too. So I used to have a little girl named Olivia, but she's all grown up in high school now. And she used to always remind me when she was painting with me, Miss Ginny, you got to paint your edges. She liked to have the edges painted. So I'm going to try without dipping my brush again to see if I can get all the last little remnants of paint off of my brush. There we go. Did I do it? All painted. Is this side painted? That side's painted. Oops, I didn't paint my top. So I will have to put a little bit more paint on my brush. And I'm going to paint right along this edge here like this. You getting pretty blue skies? Now, we got to go back and do something about my pancake looking sun. I like it. I could just leave it.
Your sister said it looks like fried egg.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. It looks like a fried egg. My sissy up in Ohio says it looks like a fried egg. You're absolutely right. Although my friends that cook breakfast for me in Gatlinburg would say that doesn't look like my fried egg, because I like my fried eggs really, really, really fried, and they get kind of brown and burnt. Okay, I've even got a thumbprint of blue in my fried egg here. So I've got blue painted all around. I want to blend this a little more. And if I kept going with the blue, then I'd lose all this pretty white, because blue is going to turn white blue really fast. So I'm going to rinse the blue off my brush. So back into my rinse water and swish it around, try to get all that blue off your brush. And then we're going to tap it off on the side of your rinse cup. And remember, this chip brush gets a lot of water in it. So I've got to really soak the water off of it. You can tell, look at my paper towel. Do I still have blue in my brush? Yeah, but I think I'm good enough. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick up some more white paint out of my white paint pot. And I'm going to start on the white part, and I'm going to brush it into the blue. It's going to start turning blue right away. So as soon as I lose all that nice white part, I'll rinse it out again and get some more white. So I'm going to start right here, right in the white part, and I'm going to brush it down into this blue. Looky there. I like that better. Do you like that better? Okay, now I don't want to get too close, so I'm going to rinse, see how it was turning blue? So I'm going to rinse that blue out again. Pat it dry on the edge of your rinse cup. Soak all that water off of it. There we go. Get some more white. Let's try up here at the top. Get some white in here and brush it right up into that sky. Okay, it's getting there. Rinse the blue off again. When we have any color that's darker than another color, when you start painting wet on wet and you paint that light color into the dark color, it turns dark pretty fast. So I'm going to soak all the water off my brush again. I'm going to need a new paper towel. Mr. Joey, will you give me another paper towel? I'm going to scoop some more white on my brush. I'm going to come over here on the side where I got my thumbprint in it. Thank you, Mr. Joey. And rinse my blue off again. I don't have to get it perfect. Do I have to get as much white as I had on there? No. Every time you paint a painting, it can look a little different. But I want a little bit more white right in this area. I kind of like how that blended. I could put a little more white up there if I wanted to. Maybe a little bit right there. Oh, look now. See, I like that. That gets this nice soft white blending going up there. So I'm going to get just a little bit more white and put it right over here. See if I can soften that edge just a little bit. I'm going to just let some of this white sunshine just radiate right out here into my blue sky. Okay, what do you think? Should have put a little bit more white maybe right here. I got lots of white up around this part and I kind of lost it down here. So I'm going to do one more bit of white. You can make as little or as much white as you want. We have this saying when grown-ups are in here painting. Grown-ups, if you've ever noticed, usually keep wanting to fiddle with stuff. They're never quite happy with how it looks. Some of you are like that too. You just never quite think you did enough, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and sometimes you wish you would quit. You go, oh, I did too much. So we have a saying in here in the studio that says walk away from the painting. So if you got it to where you think you like it, then stop. I'm going to put just a little bit more white right here, and that's all I'm going to do. There we go. What do you think? I like it. That's all I'm going to need that big brush for. And at this point, I want to get it nice and dry. The next thing we're going to do, does it kind of look like the middle of noon where you got a bright blue sky and the sun's just shining really, really bright? It's going to light up our wildflower field here. So once you get your sky looking the way you like it, once you put a little bit more white there where you like it, once you got it blended or however your sky looks that you like it, probably need a new paper towel, and we want to get ourselves some clean rinse water. So take your rinse water. See how mine looks? I don't want blue rinse water to make my green flower stems down there. So I'm going to rinse out my rinse water. I want to tell you something about rinsing your brushes out. You could go ahead and rinse out your chip brush. We're not going to need to use it again. And when you rinse a brush, if you take good care of your brushes, you'll be able to use them for a long time. Hold your brush under the water. If the water's pouring down this way, hold your brush like this. We want the bristles to go the same direction as the flow of the water. So hold it under the rinse water. Let the water rinse off. Don't hold it this way so the water's pushing the bristles the wrong way. Rinsed off, use your fingers, very gently pull the bristles apart so all the paint washes off. Wait till you see it rinsing really clearly, and then squeeze it out back into its shape. This should be a nice flat shape like that. So we're going to rinse these off. The little round brush that you use to scoop your paint, when we used it like a shovel, we want to do the same thing. Rinse it so the water's going this way, and then shake it off, and you want to make it back into a point. Mr. Joey's going to rinse my brushes off for me and get me clean rinse water while you guys are doing that. And we're going to get the hair dryer out and get our sky nice and dry. Now, if you look at my painting that we're going to do here, are my flowers and my grass and my stems going to go all the way to the top of the painting? No. If you look on this side, they're going to come about halfway up. They kind of dip down here, and then they come a little ways up on this side. So the part of my painting that really matters right now, if it's dry, is this part down here, this bottom half of my painting. Do I have to worry right now about drying this edge up here? No, it can dry all by itself because we don't need to paint in that part anymore. I don't need to paint on this side anymore. I don't need to paint in this corner up here anymore. We just need this part down here to be dry. And you can just see my fingers just slid across it, so I know I'm not dry yet. And Mr. Joey's going to get me a dry paper towel too. Mr. Joey's running around doing everything. He's running the camera, and he's getting me rinse water, and he's getting me paper towels. And And I should say thank you, Mr. Joey.
Do they need any more white paint?
We can use, if you've got any white paint left in your pot, that's okay. We don't really need too much white paint. To make our flowers and to make our grasses, we don't use any white in our grass or our stems. I had a little leftover white I used in my flowers, but you don't have to. We're going to use our yellow and our blue and our red next. So if you've got a little white left over, you can put the lid on your white so it doesn't dry out. You can move it out of the way. I'll hand mine to Mr. Joey. Okay, Mr. Joey's going to hand me the hair dryer. I'm going to run my hair dryer for just a few minutes because I can tell the bottom of my painting is still a little wet. And since I got paint sitting right here, I don't want to run my hair dryer and dry my paint in my pots out. So before you turn your hair dryer on, make sure the lids are on your pots of paint so we don't dry them out with the hair dryer. Hair dryers dry out acrylics because they thin with water, and so air dries them. Okay, so I'm going to turn the hair dryer on. Cover your ears. Now remember, we don't have to dry the top half, just the bottom half. I always run my hair dryer on high. If you put it, most hair dryers I think have a low and a high, or a cool and a hot. I use the hot air because it just dries the acrylics faster. Okay, so my bottom down here on my painting is all dry. And remember what I said, you don't have to worry about your sky and up here, your sun and your sky at the top, because we're not painting right there. So we're going to paint down here. I need my red paint, Mr. Joey, and my green. So I gave you guys some green, so you can guess we're going to use some green here in the bottom. But I want to show you also that we can make lots of shades of green. If I had not given you any green, we could make our own green. I bought a styrofoam plate. We can make our own green. Since I'm nice and dry, there's nothing on the bottom of the plate. I'm going to put it right there for me to demonstrate to you. When we look at the color wheel here, the color wheel tells us a couple things. It tells us that if we mix blue and yellow, what color's in between? When this color mixes with this color, it gives us green. So supposedly, according to my color wheel, I can scoop a little yellow and I can scoop a little blue and I can stir them up together and it's going to make green. So we're going to try that. The other thing that's really cool to remember on a color wheel is those colors that are exactly opposite each other. So that would be the purple and the yellow, the blue and the orange, and the red and the green. These are called complementary colors. Means they go nicely together. I think that's why we have red and green for Christmas. These colors go nicely together. They complement each other. But the other thing that they do is a complementary color, a little bit of red, when you put it into green, makes the green very dark. Kind of makes it not as vibrant, not as bright of a color, and then it also makes it darker. So one way to lighten colors is to add white. One way to darken colors is to add black. But sometimes adding black to a color isn't so pretty to look at. Another way to make a color dark is adding a complementary color. So we're going to actually give ourselves 3 shades of green here. We've got some green that's in our pot of paint that I gave you. We're going to make ourselves a little bit of green that's a little more yellowy green, a little brighter green. And if we make green by mixing blue and yellow, and if I want the green to be lighter than this green, I want it to have more yellow green to it. Then we're going to use more yellow and just a little bit of blue. And then we're going to mix a dark green by putting just a tiny bit of red into our green. So we're going to mix all those on our plate. So you got your styrofoam plate here. We're going to take our little brown brush that you got all nice and clean. Make sure you've tapped it off on the paper towel. I always roll my brush back and forth like this when I dry it, because that keeps the bristles rolled into this nice little point. So the first thing we're going to do, we can paint with our green paint right out of the pot, but we're going to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue, and we're going to make our light yellowy green right here. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to scoop some of my yellow. We don't want to use up all this yellow because we're going to save a little bit for some flowers here, and we're actually going to make just some plain old green stem or yellow stems. So I'm going to maybe do 2 big little scoops of yellow here. So remember, we want this green to be more yellowy green than green. So I'm going to take my yellow brush here and right out here at the edge of my blue, because I don't want to stick yellow right in the middle of my blue. And I'm just going to get the littlest amount of blue. See how much blue it got? Remember, we want this to be more yellow green than green. So a little bit of blue like this. This might even be too much. I'm going to stick it right here in my puddle of yellow, and I'm going to mix it up. And when I mix and I mix and I mix, that's a pretty color, isn't it? That makes a really pretty green. And if I look at it next to this green, look at that. Look at my different shade of green. So that's going to be pretty. I got a yellow green here. Now, remember how I want to have a dark green also? So I'm going to rinse my brush out. Get all that paint off the brush. Tap it on the edge here. Dry it off on your paper towel. Remember, twist it back and forth like this. That way, if you're twisting it back and forth and pulling it across your paper towel, you get all your drips of water off this part, and it makes the bristles go back into this nice point. So if I want to add a little bit of red to my green to make it darker, I want to scoop a little of this green out first. Take just the tiniest bit of red, because red is a very, very strong color. So I'm just going to put a little pinpoint of red. I can always add more. I'm going to put a little red into this green. And that gives me a much darker green. Look at how dark my green is compared to my pot of green. Now, I might make it just a little darker, so I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit more red. And I got a really dark green here. We're going to use some of that at the very bottom. Now, remember, I'm rinsing my brush out again. Remember how I said we paint from what's farthest away forward, right? So we want this to look like we have more than one row of grass, right? We don't want to think that we just painted one row of grass seed. This looks like we have grass going way back there and coming way forward here. So, I dropped my paper towel, Joey. I'm rinsed my brush out, tap it off on the side, and we're going to start. We want to create the look of a whole field of grass and flower stems here. So I'm going to start back here at the back with some grass, and then I'm going to paint grass in front of that, and then I'm going to paint grass in front of that, and then I'm going to paint grass in front of that. My dark green's going to be in the foreground. I'm going to want the grass way back here to be lit up by the sun the most. So I'm going to start with my really light green here, and see how my brush has got this nice little point on it. I'm going to put my little point down here in my nice little bright yellow green that I mixed up, and I'm going to start way up here. Do you see where I'm holding my brush? I'm holding my brush way back here at the back of my brush. What? Oh, I need to put my hand down. I'm going to hold my brush back here. When you hold your brush back here, it makes you hold it not so tight. We don't want to press hard. We want to make some nice thin grass. So if you make yourself hold your brush at the end like this, it makes you loosen the grip on your brush, and we get nice flowy lines. So I'm going to start about halfway, almost halfway up my side here, and I'm going to put some pieces of grass. I'm going to dip the tip of my paintbrush right back in my bright yellow green paint, and I'm going to put some more. Do you notice how they're not all perfectly straight? I want some leaning this way and some leaning this way. So we're going to go right along here. We're going to paint a bunch of light green grass. They can crisscross each other. You can just have a good old time. We can put another row in front of this row. We want them to all kind of pile up and crisscross each other because we don't want to, we want it to look like one big wild field of flowers. So we're going to come around here with this light green we made. I don't want it to be too tall in the middle. I want it to come down like I'm going down a hill, and then we're going to go up a little hill over here. So I'm going to keep adding some nice light green bristles here. Let's put some over here, crisscross, make some go this way, make some go that way. We can make them crisscross all over the place. Some go this way, some go that way. You can turn your hand and make it crisscross in other directions. We'll put a few. We need to scoot this way just a little bit. Okay, is that better?
Mm-hmm.
You guys see? Over here, I'm only going to go about this high. Because you know me, I like things to look asymmetrical. So this side's going to be higher in my field. This side's going to be lower. And see, I'm still holding my brush way back here at the back. It just lets me kind of flop the brush around, which means I don't press so hard, which means I get to get nice grassy thin lines. I'm picking up just a little bit. See on the tip of my brush here? Picking up just a little bit on my plate. So I get, 5 or 6 little blades of grass, and then I dip the tip of my bristles back in again. Okay, now I got a whole bunch of this light green. I'm going to switch. Take that, Mr. Joey. I'm going to get my pot of green paint here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to dip just the tip of my bristles in my plain green, and I'm going to start putting some plain green grass here. I'm going to move down so that we're getting another row of green grass in front of that grass. Put some over here. These blades of grass can be just a little thicker. I don't want to have big gaps here, so I want to fill all my little spaces. I want my grass to look like it's growing in front of this grass. So I want to cover up the bottom of where those go. I'm putting just a little bit on the tip of my brush here. And my light green grass is still wet, so sometimes when I do this, it kind of pulls a little of that color, mixes in. Let's put some of this regular green over here. Okay, got some regular green. Now, let's look back at my painting. Move on my... Okay, we're getting a lot of yellow green here, a lot of light yellow green. I'm putting in some of my regular green next to it. I'm going to use some of this dark green too. Now in the foreground here, we kind of want to be solid. I like seeing the sky peeking through my grass back here, but when I scoop up some of this dark green that we made, I want to just get this whole foreground. I want to get this whole foreground in dark. So I'm going to scoop up some of my dark green that I made here. And I'm going to start coming from the very bottom and brush it right up into where I was just putting that regular green. So it's kind of like making a shadow here. What's cool is by putting the dark down here in the front, it makes it look like the sun is lighting up the front of our field, doesn't it? Since we get a shadow back here. So I want to come along with this dark, kind of fill in my bottom here. I'm going to get some of this dark to go right up the side over here. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of dark on this side. And I can pull a couple of these dark. I'm putting it just on the tip of my brush, like this. I'm going to pull a few little dark pieces right up in there. And we'll put a few over here. Just a little bit on the tip of my brush. A little bit on the tip of my brush here. Okay, is your field kind of getting filled in? Now, I got a lot of dark. I used up just about all my dark on my plate there, which is okay. Got it kind of filled in here. Now, I'm going to, back to Mr. Joey, I'm going to take a little bit of my green here. I'm going to come back and throw some green in here. See how the green shows up? Kind of makes a contrast against this really dark over here. So we can put a little bit of green and we still see the dark coming through. Try not to get it too globby, because we do want this to dry. Okay, I kind of like my field of grasses here. I'm going to put my green back down here. And before I dry this to put some flowers on it, we're going to rinse my brush out, dry it off, roll it on your paper towel, dry it off. I'm going to take just straight out of my yellow pot here. I'm going to, since my grass is all still wet in a lot of places, I'm going to put just a little bit on the tip of my brush. See the little tiny bit just on the tip of my brush? I'm going to come in here where I really want it light, okay? And I'm going to put just some, almost like some little highlights, just the tip of the bristles. And I'm going to come up here and put some really light ones right out here at the edge, because it makes it look like the sun's hitting those blades of grass. So I'm going to put, if you hold your brush, barely touch the canvas. Hold it right up above the canvas, barely touch the canvas. There we go. And it'll give you this nice little light up some of these blades of grass here. So I'm holding the brush way out here at the end, and I'm barely touching the canvas. Sometimes I do this and I even miss the canvas because I'm trying to keep my brush not too close to the canvas. But I want to light up this front edge of my grass. It really makes it look like the sun's just shining right on these front pieces of grass. Yeah, I don't need to go all the way across it. I'm going to light up a few more. I think I want the most lit up right down here in the middle and over on this side. So I'm going to light some up. I don't just need the top. I come back down here in front of some of those and put some down here. That really, now does it really look like the sun's shining on my grass? Looks pretty good. Put your brush in the water. And if you're still working on your grass, that's okay. I want you to stop and watch for just about 5 minutes here. Oops, I keep pulling my painting away. I'm going to show you how we're going to do flowers, and you can keep then working on your grass and do your flowers later. I'm going to use the hairdryer to dry my grass real quick so I can show you the last step with the flowers, because there's a couple fun ways to make flowers. So stop and watch for just a minute. Don't worry if your grass isn't done, because Miss Ginny probably paints a lot faster than you do. So, oh, before I run my hairdryer, you got to cover up your pots of paint. So don't run the hairdryer with your paint sitting right there. You'll dry your paint out. So I'm going to put my tops on, and we can move my green out of the way. And we're just going to use some red and blue and yellow to make some flowers. Okay. So I'm going to run the hairdryer for a minute to get my grass done. You can keep painting on your grass while I'm running my hairdryer. Okay, I think I'm dry enough. Let me show you a fun way to make flowers. We can use two things to make flowers. If you found yourself a pencil, it's got a flat eraser on the bottom. We can use the pencil to make some small flowers. We can also use our nice round brush here. I'm going to rinse all the paint off, dry it off on my paper towel, twist it back and forth so we have a nice point. Look at the nice point this brush has. I'm going to take the lids back off my paint, and if you have even just the littlest amount of white left in your pot, which I bet you have just a little, might be scraping the bottom, but if we got a little white left in our pot, we're going to mix that with our yellow. Remember how I told you yellow is a little bit see-through? So my white paint's about done. Is that about what yours looks like? Hardly any in there. But what I'm going to do is pick up some of my yellow, and I'm going to mix it right into that white. Now, if you've got a lot of white paint left, then do this on your styrofoam plate. But if your white paint's about out like mine, by mixing a little white, thank you, Joey, by mixing a little white with the yellow, I still got yellow, but it's going to make it show up more. It's going to make it more solid, more opaque. So now, once I stir it all up, look at the glob of paint I got on my brush. Now, there's no way I'm making a little dot of paint with that brush. So what I'm going to do is twist my brush back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it rolls all the paint off the end of my brush back into the pot. So I can get it back down to a little point. And two ways we can make some little flowers. I can dip the tip of my paintbrush in the paint, and I can hold it straight up and down like an arrow, and I can make some little flowers. Some of my flowers are way up here in the sky. Not too far away, but they kind of look like a petal that just went, and maybe I'll put a few over here of yellow ones. Now I'm holding the brush, I'm dipping the tip in the bristles. I'm dipping the tip of the bristles in the paint, putting some paint on the end, and then I'm holding it straight up and down like an arrow and making some little dots. If I want to make some tiny dots, then I barely touch the canvas and then make some little tiny dots. If I want a bigger dot, I'm going to put it down, I'm going to squish it in and wiggle it around a little bit. That'll make some big yellow flowers. Okay, maybe a big yellow flower over here. You get to be the gardener here. You can design your garden. Let's put a big yellow one over there. Okay, the other way I can make some yellow flowers is use the bottom of the pencil. Dip that flat where the eraser is in the paint. So we got paint on the bottom, and then you can go boop, boop, boop. Okay. Dip the bottom of the pencil in the paint. Hold it straight up and down like an arrow. Oh, you're seeing the top of my hand. Joey keeps telling me. Okay, so we're going to put it down. And we're going to make us... Oh, Joey wants one down here. There we go. Okay, that's enough. Now, your pencil, you could rinse off if we want to use another color. I'm just going to wipe the pencil off on my paper towel. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it in the blue. And, aha. I'm going to switch hands. Mr. Joey will be happier. I'm going to put some blue flowers in here. Now, I could use my pencil eraser and dot around to make some really big flowers by just dotting more than just the one time I dot. Okay, that gives me a few blue flowers here. When the pencil eraser runs out, I can also tip it on its side and just get the little hint of a few flower petals. So I could tip it, just put the little edge of my pencil eraser on and get some tiny little flowers. Okay, I'm gonna wipe that off, and how about if we do some red ones? I'm gonna rinse all my brush off. Remember I had yellow on my brush? Pat it dry, and I'll try using my left hand. My sister would be good at this. She's left-handed. Okay, I'm gonna use my left hand so you can see better. Got a little fuzzy in the paint. Okay, I put a little bit of paint on the end. I'm gonna hold it way up here, and I'm gonna barely touch the canvas and get some tiny little red, and some tiny red flowers. If we make small flowers, they look like they're farther away. They look like the ones at this end of the field. So I want some flowers to look like they're back there at the other end of the field. So I'm going to use the tip of my brush like this and barely touch the canvas. So I'm getting some really tiny ones. I even put some just right above. They all don't have to look like they line right up with a... Now, if I dip this tip in, scooch a little more paint on the end like this, and then squish it down there. Oops, that made a really big flower. I can squish, almost roll it around and make some big red flowers. Maybe we'll put a big one over here by these big blue ones. And where else, Mr. Joey? Maybe one over here. And how about one? Couple of them over there. My field's looking pretty good. You can keep adding flowers. If you had more white left that you didn't just mix the yellow into, you can even put some white on there. Any place you think we should add some more, Mr. Joey? Mr. Joey thinks we look done. I'm gonna put one more blue one, a couple more blue ones over here. We kept our blue sky really light over here so I can see some of my dark blue flowers. There we go. Okay, when you're done, make sure your brush is in the water so they don't dry out until you wash them, and then you wash them very carefully like I told you so that you can reshape them and that they stay good brushes, because we'll use them on another week, okay? I'm gonna have Mr. Joey pull our camera back. And I'm missing one of my lids, it looks like, Mr. Joey. Thank you. And we're going to prop our paintings up so you can see them. I'll prop this one up. When Mr. Joey pulls our camera back, we'll prop our fields up here together. There we go. We definitely look like April showers brought me flowers. You can keep adding flowers. You can add some more down in this area. You can add some more over here. If once you've added all your flowers, you can go back in and add more grass and then put more flowers on top of those. You can just have fun playing with your painting. Tomorrow, we're going to use your oil pastels. And be sure and take some pictures so I can see what your wildflowers look like. This reminds me of the wildflower field that's down in the Sea Pines Forest Preserve. So if you've not seen that, that's a pretty thing to go look at. Take a picture and be sure and tag us. Use that little @ Idea Studio. And I want to tell you about something that's up on our website for grown-ups this week. We decided you poor grown-ups are going nuts out there with nothing to do. So we mentioned before that we're going to start doing painting parties. These are a couple more of our paintings that we're doing. We now have painting parties up on our website. Mr. Joey's going to make me hold 3 at one time. Okay. We've got painting parties up on our website now. We're getting ready to post pictures on the calendar part, but they're up there. We're going to do our first painting party on this Thursday, 7 to 9. You can read all about it on the website. Log on. There's just one cost per household to log on, and you'll get the email telling you how to do it. And join us for painting on Thursday night. We've got supplies you can also buy if you need supplies, and otherwise you can just curl up and have a good time and try painting like your kids did today. We're going to do a painting Thursday night, and then we'll be popping a whole bunch more up on the calendar to do. So check out the website, find out about our painting party, and we will see you tomorrow with our oil pastels. Bye.